Every month, a ton of new games come out, and every month, GameRanks gathers together the ones that are probably going to get the most attention and, well, direct more attention at them. Hi, folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, the top 10 new games of August 2024. Starting off with number 10, Level 0 Extraction. So this is a game where they're attempting to merge tactical extraction shooters and immersive survival horror. How do I know this? Well, anytime you encounter this game, they're pretty much blasting you with that exactly. I've seen slightly more creative things said by various outlets that it's somewhere between Tarkov and Alien Isolation, and I like that a little bit better, because if it actually lived up to that, that's not vague. We know exactly what both of those things are and have a pretty decent idea as to how they might feel at once. It does look like that, if I'm completely honest. I've watched plenty of gameplay of this. I've not been able to play it. It did have an open beta, but I was not aware of it at the time. But it is absolutely something I am interested in playing. Now, what's interesting, you probably don't think of it when you hear those two things as an asymmetrical PvPvE, but it is. It's exactly that. So you're getting a lot all at once, and all of what I've seen of it looks like a game that works rather than is a bunch of different things. It looks like something cohesive, and it looks like fun. And yes, you can play as the aliens. Level 0 Extraction is coming to the PC first and consoles later. It's landing on PC on August 6th. At number 9 is Squirrel with a Gun, the game that says everything you need to know in the title. It is a squirrel that is squirrel-sized with a gun that is gun-sized. This is a game that reads Goat Simulator pretty well, except it seems like it isn't so janky. Like, the game actually looks like it is not intentionally a huge mess. It looks like it intends to deliver on the premise, which I very much like. Which I'm certainly not knocking Goat Simulator. It's just, if this was Goat Simulator, what's the point? I think the devs understood that as they were making it, because there's a lot more going on than just the guns. And while it's very sandbox looking, it does look like they have provided a bit more of a cohesive sandbox to play with. The gunplay looks good. A lot of the weird animations that accompany the gunplay also looks good. A lot of the things that are not guns look like they are actually fun and work. Like, if I'm serious, some of the bullet time in the trailer is better than a lot of things since The Matrix that have used bullet time. Like, the presentation is quite a bit better than Goat Simulator. And I'm quite excited to see what the hell this game actually is. I've been interested in it since they announced it. I have been all in anytime Squirrel with a Gun is mentioned. And I am really excited to play it on the PC, where it's launching first on August 29th and sometime in November on consoles. Next is Gory Cuddly Carnage, a hack and slash coming to us from Angry Demon Studio. This is a game where you play as a cat warrior in a post-humanity world, and the adorable army decides that it has to destroy everything, so you have to stop them. I don't really think that the plot is particularly important here. What I think is cool is, well, look at it. It's a game that looks like this and plays like this, but in 2024. I mean, this looks like a tremendous amount of fun, and I really look forward to playing when it lands on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch August 26th. And number 7 is Visions of Mana, and this is a new Mana game. There hasn't been a new Mana game since Dawn of Mana back in 2006. Secret of Mana is, of course, a legendary RPG series that stretches all the way back to Final Fantasy Adventure, which was on the Game Boy. Stylistically, it looked like a Final Fantasy game, and that's the primary reason they slapped the Final Fantasy name on it in America and Japan. But they also tried to separate it by calling it Adventure, because it actually played a little bit more like Legend of Zelda. And it's a good combination of aesthetic and gameplay. It wasn't actually Mana, like the name of the series didn't appear until a few years later when the Super Nintendo Secret of Mana came out, which is, in my opinion, still kind of the best Mana game. There was another Japanese game that they couldn't port, or rather didn't want to. I don't know, because apparently there's a lot of technical bugs or something. And then again, there was Dawn of Mana in 2006. That was the last. I have a feeling having a retrospective look at this series will yield a better game. Like, everybody kind of knows that Secret of Mana is the best of the games, and it's reasonable to assume that Visions of Mana will probably take a similar mechanical approach, probably not visual approach. I mean, It's very anime-inspired. I mean, it retains a little bit of the square look from a certain era, but you see some Breath of the Wild influence in there as well. I mean, of course I'm ready for more Mana. It's been a long time, and I'm really excited to play this. If it feels like a modern Mana, that's exactly what I want. Visions of Mana is coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC on August 29th. And number 6 is Gundam Breaker 4. So the point of this one is to create your own Gundam and then to battle other Gundams. And also you can rip apart the Gundams. That's what the Breaker part is. I don't know, this one has some naysayers. Forbes released an article saying it likely won't be very good. And it's because the author doesn't have a massive amount of confidence in the developer. I don't know. I think it looks pretty cool. I mean, the game isn't like a visual tour de force or anything, but everything I've seen of people actually playing the game as opposed to just speculating about it, people seem to like it. So, I feel like I'll listen to them before Forbes. I mean, finance capital and I guess video game commentary makes sense. I don't know. I like Gundam. I like fighting games. I like ripping apart robots. All that's here. Assuming they don't screw it up, that's a hell of a formula. Gundam Breaker 4 is coming to PC, PS5, PS4, and Switch on August 29th. And number 5 is Signy, All Guns Blazing. If you like a good shmup, it looks like this is one of your prime targets. A twin-stick, vertical-scrolling shooter that, frankly, just to be clear, we do not get enough of. And they have drastically upgraded what this type of a game can look like. Because, of course, we live in an era of significantly better graphics. But, I mean, this is a bullet hell in every possible way. You got big enemies, crazy-looking arenas / levels. And honestly, it looks beautiful and like a hell of a lot of fun. Konami is publishing it, and good for them. Thank you for bringing something good to us, Konami. It is the first game from a developer called Keelworks from Scotland, and I'm psyched. Like, look at this footage. This is going to be fun as hell. It's you versus alien invaders, and it's a twin-stick bullet hell shooter. Yes, absolutely. Period. Done. Sold. Shut up and take my money. Signy All Guns Blazing is coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series on August 6th. And number 4 is Stormgate, an RTS that comes to us from Frost Giant Studios. I mentioned the studio first because it's significant in what kind of game this is and why you should want to play it. Tim Morton, the previous production lead on StarCraft II Legacy of the Void, and Tim Campbell, Warcraft 3 The Frozen Throne's lead campaign designer, are the co-founders of Frost Giant Studios. They started the company because they wanted to develop an accessible real-time strategy game, meaning something less overly insane than StarCraft or Warcraft can be. And here we are 4 years later, about to enter into early access on this free-to-play post-apocalyptic RTS brought to us by, frankly, just some industry veterans that know what the hell they're doing. And to be frank, that's why to play it. If you look at it, graphically speaking, some of the visuals and ideas aren't, I mean, they're good, of course, but they're not shocking or anything. I think the reason to play this is because we know it's going to be quality. And if it's not quality, what the hell's happening? That's kind of my evaluation of this situation. It is coming to PC, like I said, in early access. It's releasing in its final version a year later, but early access starts August 13th. And number 3 is Concord, a team-based FPS with, to be frank, a fairly unique look. To the point where I am making the assumption they said, what are colors that are not used super often in all of these team-based FPSs? Because that's what it just looks, despite not having a particularly different artistic style, has a completely different palette. And it stands out, honestly, which is probably to its benefit. It's a 5v5. You have your various different characters with different abilities. It's got 6 different PvP modes that range from respawn-based stuff to objectives. Honestly, it looks like a solid game. Obviously, we're going to have to play it in order to really know what it's about, but all the footage I've seen of it looks quite solid. It also does look like it has some different stuff. I do not know what to make of this giant airgun robot thing, but I like it. I think it's cool, and I'm excited to see exactly how this thing plays. It's definitely of my interests. This one is not a free-to-play, but it's not a full-priced game either. It's $39. It's landing on PC and PS5. Just a quick alert, you do need a PlayStation account to play it on Steam, which is nice that you will have crossplay, but not nice that that's how they're doing it. Anyway, it's landing on those platforms August 23rd. And number 2 is Black Myth Wukong, a Souls-like, although they don't call it a Souls-like. I'm going to say it's a Souls-like because everybody's saying the words Souls-like and just resisting the idea that you're a Souls-like because the word's being said too much. It's not enough for me. And look at this game. Yeah, there's a little bit of a speed difference between your typical Souls-like, but everything about the gameplay looks like a Souls-like. How many times am I going to say that during this point? Probably at least one more. I don't know. It is a beautiful looking game. To be frank, probably one of the visually best looking games coming out right now. And it's based on old Chinese folklore. And that's something that lends itself to visual excellence if you really know what you're doing. And it looks like they have risen to the challenge, which makes me quite happy. I mean, there's not much to say about this game. It's been something we've talked about for such a long period of time now, and it's really awesome that it's finally coming out because I think it's gonna be worth the time that they spent developing it. I mean, it's one of those timeless stories that's super interesting because it's just been adapted so many different times in so many different ways that it feels like a new story almost every time you experience it. I mean, there have been video games loosely based on it. Damon Albarn of Gorillaz made a musical out of it. There's movies, cartoons, just stuff that has used it as source material, if not completely adapted it. But honestly, this looks like a fairly straightforward adaptation and a Souls-like. I told you one more time. I am really looking forward to playing Black Myth Wukong. It's coming to PC and PS5 on August 20th. And finally, at number 1, Star Wars Outlaws, which is a game that has caused a decent amount of controversy, as well as, honestly, a pretty fair amount of hype. It is a big open-world Star Wars game that takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and doesn't blast you with characters from those movies, which is real nice, in my opinion. Obviously, I love those movies and characters, but I like the idea of a unique story that is maybe affected by those events in some ancillary way, but otherwise isn't necessarily hopelessly dependent on those movies. What I like, we have some evidence that there is some Uncharted-like stuff in this, as well as some typical open world type stuff that you would see in a lot of other Ubisoft games. It does look like they've trimmed a lot of the fat that you might expect with a Ubisoft open world game. Hopefully that pans out to be true because, I mean, imagine if they pull this off. You're basically a criminal. You're doing work for various crime syndicates. You build a reputation. There's a wanted system. I'm going to repeat that. There's a wanted system. I like that. I like a lot about what I hear about this game. In fact, I like what I hear about this game so much that I am worried that it's not going to do it. I want it. I want the game to do it, because if it does, this is a huge win and a big dearth of, frankly, awful Star Wars content. Disney needs this. Lucasfilm needs this. Ubisoft needs it more than anybody. Honestly, they, perhaps even to some extent unfairly, have a reputation of just plopping out crapo open world games. Even though they've, I think, done a lot to sort of mend that reputation, it's still stuck with them a bit. So a lot is riding on this one, and I think if they pull it off, it's really going to be something special. Star Wars Outlaws is landing on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox August 30th. I do have several bonus games for you because there's a lot going on here that, frankly, I want to talk about. First off, World of Warcraft: The War Within. It is an expansion pack for World of Warcraft, the MMORPG. I'll be honest, the story, I have no idea what's going on. I have not played World of Warcraft in quite a while, but I do know that there are a lot of people who still play WoW and love the hell out of it, and I'm sure this is going to be important for them. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about, like, Kaz Algar or the Harbinger of the Void, because I'm not up on it. But, World of Warcraft is a hell of a lot of fun, even if you really don't know what's going on. It's a community, probably more than it is a game. So more content in that context, in my opinion, is probably great. That's landing on PC August 22nd. Next is one that I am particularly excited about, World of Goo 2. I am a huge fan of World of Goo, but it's old as hell. It's really nice that it's out on several contemporary platforms, including Nintendo Switch, but more nice is that they are updating it and bringing new mechanics. World of Goo is such a strange game. You basically build up structures with these little goo guys, It's a really fun puzzle game. It has a really weird dystopian vibe to it, but somehow manages to be cute without being that grimdark thing that sometimes you see. I don't know. It's a lot. I'll say that it is a lot, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. Only took them 15 years, though. I'll be playing it. It's landing on PC and Nintendo Switch on August 2nd. Next is Madden NFL 20.